New York has a heartbeat. You either learn to match or get drowned, and most people don't notice it. Too busy rushing from one place to the next. But if you pay attention, the city hums with the sound of people crossing paths they didn't know would change them. I was a florist in Soho, not glamorous, not fancy, just me in an apron that always smelled like lavender and green stems, arranging bouquets for strangers and pretending I wasn't waiting for something or someone. I liked watching people come and go, the woman who bought tulips every Monday like clockwork, the kid who stole roses for girls who never noticed. But mostly, I liked watching the man across the street. He worked at a hole-in-the-wall coffee shop, always had headphones in, always wore the same denim jacket with a rip on the sleeve. His name was Luca. I didn't know that then. I just called him Blue Jacket. Every morning at 8:42, he'd wipe down the sidewalk chalkboard, sip from a chipped mug, and glance in my direction. Never long enough to be obvious, just long enough to wonder. We lived like that for months, parallel lives, flowers and coffee, glances and silence. Until the accident. A Friday in early March, rainy and mean. I was running late, the subway had stalled, my heel had snapped, and I was balancing 3 floral arrangements like my life depended on it. I crossed Fifth Avenue without checking the light. He was the one who pulled me back. Not in a movie scene kind of way. Not slow motion or dramatic, just hands on my arms, firm, warm, real. "You okay?" he asked. It was the first time I heard his voice. I nodded, breathless. Yeah, just distracted. He looked at the flowers in my hands, then at me. "I've seen you," he said, as if that explained everything. "I know," I replied, "me too." That's how it started. We got coffee that afternoon. He brought me a new mug the next day, hand-painted, chipped in the same spot as his. Said it was for symmetry. Turns out Luca was more than a barista. He was a musician, played piano at a jazz lounge downtown 4 nights a week, said he liked the mornings quiet, the nights loud, that he needed both to feel like himself. I told him I liked giving beauty to people who didn't know they needed it, that some people say it with flowers, and I liked being the person who helped them say it. We fit not because we were the same, but because we were whole around each other. He'd play piano while I watered plants. I'd leave bouquets on his windowsill with little notes tucked in the stems. He taught me to hear the city's music. I taught him how to find color in the gray. One night, I asked him if he believed in fate. He said, "I don't know, but I believe in Fifth and Mercer." That was where he'd seen me for the first time, he said, nearly a year before he ever spoke to me. He used to draw me in his notebook, quick sketches of a girl behind glass surrounded by sunflowers. I didn't know what to say to that, so I kissed him. Months passed like dreams you don't want to wake from, until one morning he didn't show up. 8:42 came and went. No Luca. No music. No notes. I waited. I called. I went to the jazz club. They told me he hadn't played in over a week, said he quit suddenly. Vanished. I thought maybe I got it wrong, that I'd fallen in love with someone who couldn't stay. I told myself stories about why he left. Another city, another life. Someone else. I almost believed him. Until the envelope arrived. No return address. Just my name in his handwriting. Inside was a letter, confession. Luca had been sick, a neurological condition, rare degenerative he'd known for over a year. He didn't want me to watch him fade. Said he'd spent his whole life making beauty out of sound and couldn't bear to become a silence I had to care for. "I didn't disappear because I stopped loving you," he wrote. "I disappeared because I started to." I cried on the floor of the shop that day. My hands smelled like lilies. The city outside moved on, loud and uncaring. A week later, I went to Fifth and Mercer. I stood on the corner where it all began, and there, taped to the pole by the crosswalk, was a sketch, faded, weather-worn, but unmistakable. Me in the shop window surrounded by sunflowers. Below it, in small, smudged letters, I see you. Love doesn't always stay. Sometimes it arrives in glances and grows in silence. Sometimes it leaves before you're ready, but when it's real, it lingers in music, in memory, in corners of a city where two lives once collided. Like destiny had it mapped out all along.
New York City never sleeps, but sometimes if you listen closely between the sirens and subway rumbles, it dreams. That's where this story begins. I was a barista on the Lower East Side early mornings, caffeine-fueled regulars, jazz in the background, and the smell of burnt espresso grounds in my clothes long after I left. It wasn't glamorous, but I liked watching the city wake up. I liked learning people by the way they ordered coffee. He was a bike messenger. At least that's what I assumed every Thursday at 8:17 a.m. He'd glide past the cafe window, black hoodie, headphones, a blur of motion and mystery, always too fast to catch. We never spoke. I gave him a nickname, Phantom Guy. Sometimes I imagined he was a secret agent or a poet who hated poetry. It became a ritual, watching for him, then going back to steaming milk and forgetting the name on the cup. What I didn't know was that across the city, he was watching me too. Not from a distance, but through my words. See, by night I wrote anonymously for a column called The City Between the Lines. It was small, tucked in the lifestyle section of a digital magazine, but it had a loyal following. I wrote about the city like it was a person, chaotic, beautiful, and full of secrets. He read every piece. It was his thing, he said later. After long days weaving through traffic, dropping off documents and takeout, he'd wind down with my words. He didn't know my name, just the byline. No photo, no details, just paragraphs about window washers at midnight, missed trains that led to perfect afternoons, and the barista who watched the world through a fogged-up glass. Yeah, I wrote about him. And then one rainy Tuesday in October, it happened. The collision. Literally. I was running late to my second job, a bookstore gig uptown, and juggling my umbrella, a thermos, and a manuscript someone left behind. He was swerving to avoid a cab that cut the corner. We both turned the same direction at the same time. Crash. Books, coffee, and apologies scattered across wet pavement. I looked up, ready to curse the universe, and saw him. Black hoodie, headphones around his neck. Wide eyes. My Phantom Guy. "You're real," I said out loud. He blinked. Yeah. We laughed. He helped me gather the books. I helped him untangle his bike chain. And somewhere in between all of that, something shifted. He walked me to the bookstore. I gave him a free coffee coupon. We exchanged first names. Jake. Emily. The next morning, he came to the cafe on purpose. No bike, no rush. He ordered tea, sat by the window, and asked if I believed in fate. "I believe in well-timed accidents," I said, smiling. And from there, it was like the city leaned in and made room for us. We wandered through galleries on our days off, rode the Staten Island ferry at midnight just to watch the skyline flicker. He learned how to make pour-over coffee. I learned how to ride a bike in Central Park without panicking. It wasn't perfect. He was chaotic. I overthought everything. He lost his keys constantly. I couldn't fall asleep without white noise. But love doesn't care about neat edges. Then one evening, we were curled up in his apartment, and I read a passage from The City Between the Lines. He froze. That's my favorite column. He said I read it every week. The writer. They remind me of you. I swallowed hard, set the book down. That's because it is me. He stared. You're E. I nodded. He grabbed the manuscript I'd left that rainy day, pulled it from a drawer, dog-eared, underlined, read a dozen times. I thought I loved your words, he said, but I had no idea I already loved you. That night, he kissed me like punctuation at the end of a sentence he'd waited years to finish. And just when I thought fate was done playing tricks on us, another twist. I got an offer. A book deal, a chance to leave the cafe, the bookstore, the late nights, but it was in another city, Chicago. I didn't want to go, but he looked at me, eyes full of pride, not fear. You told the city story, he said. Now go write your own. We kissed on the train platform, the skyline behind us, and I left. It's been 8 months. We write letters, real ones. He mails me pressed leaves and postcards scribbled with poetry. I send him chapters and pages torn from napkins. We're not in the same city anymore. But I see him every way. In the guy biking past the cafe window, in the blur of someone running for the train, in the stranger who reads quietly on the steps of a bookstore. They say New York never sleeps. But I know it dreams. And sometimes it dreams two people into the same moment, just long enough to fall in love before sending them in different direction. Maybe one day we'll collide again. And this time, no one will be in a rush to lean in.
If you told me the love of my life worked 5 blocks away for 2 years, I never noticed. I would have laughed. I didn't believe in fate, or timing, or love that finds you when you're not looking. Until him. I was a night shift nurse at Mercy General, long hours, burnt coffee, and patients who carried entire lifetimes in their eyes. My world was white walls, fluorescent lights, and the steady beep of heart monitors. I'd forgotten what quiet felt like. He was a street musician, played saxophone in the subway near 14th Street every morning around 7 a.m. while I walked home exhausted. He played like the world was still worth listening to. I never stopped. Not really. But I remember thinking, he sounds like hope. He wore a green beanie, always smiling. I called him Jazzman in my head. He never looked up. 2 lives, 1 city, no reason to meet. Until the fire. It was a tenement building collapse near East Village. They brought the injured to our trauma unit, smoke in their lungs, panic in their eyes. I was assigned to a man pulled from the stairwell wreckage, smoke, inhalation, minor burns. He was unconscious when I saw him. Green beanie clutched in his hand. I stared at him for a long time. His name on the chart, Miles Carter, my jazz man. The doctor said he'd be okay. I rotated off shift, but something in me refused to leave. I came back early the next day, and the next I told myself it was professional, that I was checking vitals, but really I just wanted to be near him. 3 days later, he woke up, groggy, dry-throated, but the first thing he asked, "Did anyone find my sax?" I smiled. "Not yet, but I did find your name." He looked at me for a long moment. "Do I know you?" I hesitated. "You play near 14th Street. I passed by after my shift, I guess." "I've been listening for a while." His face softened. "Then maybe I've been playing for you." We talked slowly, carefully, like neither of us wanted to scare the moment away. Turns out he wasn't just a subway musician. He'd once played in jazz halls, traveled, had a label deal in the works, but after losing his brother to an overdose, he quit it all. Said the music only made sense when no one expected anything from it. I told him about the hospital, the patients who stayed, the ones who didn't, the weight of carrying people when you're not allowed to grieve for them. Somehow we understood each other. For weeks we lived in that strange in-between, shared lunches in the break room, midnight calls, long silences that weren't uncomfortable. I'd find little notes he left taped to the vending machines. One read, "You deserve a song all your own." And then one night, just as spring was turning the city gold again, he walked me home after a shift. We stopped in front of my building and he said, "I don't think I was in that stairwell by accident." I laughed. "You're saying fate threw a building at you so we could meet?" He smiled, "If that's what it took. I'm not mad about it." We kissed. It was soft, real, like something that had waited a long time to arrive. For 3 months it was magic. Late night walks, music on rooftops, coffee at 6 a.m. Instead of sleep, he started playing gigs again. I started writing again. We were becoming the best versions of ourselves together. And then the letter came. An offer, a music conservatory in Paris, full scholarship, mentorship. It was everything he thought. He'd walked away from a second chance. He showed it to me, silent, like he already knew what I would say. "You have to go." I whispered, "I'll stay if you ask me to." "I won't," I said, even as my throat closed around the words. We promised to try. Distance, letters, calls. We tried, but time zones are cruel. Loneliness is louder at 3 a.m. The calls got shorter, the silences grew longer, and eventually, he stopped playing for me. That was 2 years ago. I still walk past 14th Street sometimes. I still hear saxophone, but it's never him. And then last Tuesday, I opened the newspaper. Folded between headlines was an article about a new jazz album, Parallel Lines, by Miles Carter. The cover was a sketch of a subway tunnel with a woman in scrubs walking through it. The first track, Nurse in the Night. I sat on that bench at 14th and cried. Because even if we never found our way back, he remembered. And maybe that's what love is. Not forever, not always. Just someone who once collided with your life so perfectly, you never forget the sound of it.